Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. I am going to open a box. This is the first box from the Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter project or whatever from last year, and tell you about Fairy Tale. So, a book and a box. I am planning to batch record a bunch of unboxings today, so I might change my shirt a couple times to keep it interesting, but you know, get used to it because I was going through my closet yesterday, this closet back here, to clean some stuff out, and found a couple of Owl Crate boxes that I had never seen before. So apparently when they came, I just kind of tucked them away and planned to come back to them and never did. And then I have all the new boxes. So what I'm going to try and do is record this one, at least do my most recent Owl Crates, my most recent Nightworms, and my most recent Fairy Loot, record them today, and then have those ready to all edit and then push out over the next couple weeks, or all at one time, because you know how I'm not really great at following through if I wait too long. I don't know if anyone can relate to that. All right, let's talk about the book first. I think I talked about the box first last time. Stephen King's most recent humongous offering is called Fairy Tale. And it is about a 17-year-old boy who starts to be the caretaker for this old man in the house up the hill that's always been sort of like off limits. You know, the kind of vibe that they're going for here. There's a house at the top of a hill, an old guy with a dog who's, you know, get off my lawn kind of old guy. All the kids are scared of him, etc., etc. But the book actually opens with the narrator telling us that he's not sure where to start this story because it all gets really mingled up. And if we start with the old man, then we miss some things that happened before our main character, whose name I can't even remember, Charlie. If we start with the old man, then we miss where Charlie's coming from. And the first, typical of Stephen King, the first third of the book, I would say, is us learning about the world and the characters. The world on top is very mundane. It's the same it's all the same stuff. Charlie is a good student. He's an excellent athlete. And he has this very high sense of commitment to paying it forward. Some bad stuff happens to him when he's young, which they go into in the book, and he has basically decided that he's going to be a force for good. Not in those words, but that's kind of what's happening. And so we know all of that about Charlie before we find out that he is going to inherit the door into a different world. And that's where all the magical stuff starts to happen. And we learn it as Charlie learns it, because the old guy dies, which I don't think is a spoiler or anything. I think it's pretty obvious, actually, that Charlie's gonna learn some things from this old guy. He's gonna die, and then he's got to figure out what to do to save the world that he goes into through this door. And there's a dog, and I love a dog. I love a dog as a main driving force in character. And so our Charlie has a lot of honor. And one of the really cool things about this book, or one of the things that I found really cool, is that it's not necessarily a book about books, but it's a book about storytelling and about stories, particularly around fairy tales and tropes. And so Charlie is a reader, and he recognizes some of the things that are happening to him. The narrator, Charlie, is telling us the story as an adult. So he doesn't always sound like a 17-year-old because we're actually hearing the story retrospectively. But in the moment, it seems like there are also times when Charlie recognizes that he's in the middle of um, a major kind of hero's journey kind of story, and he recognizes the tropes and some of the common elements from other fairy tales that he's read or that he's familiar with. Um, Stephen King is, as always, or maybe not as always, but as often, the mundane world is set in a world that's very, very much like our own. And there are also references to Stephen King being an author in this world, or to movies and TV shows that we will have heard of. It's a um, post-COVID story, so there's also a reference to that. So the mundane world is very recognizable, and then that's in stark contrast to the world that Charlie goes into afterwards that is unrecognizable in a lot of ways, including the people who live there, and the kind of struggles that they're facing feel very different for Charlie. But he, because of his high sense of honor, is ready to not only be there to help, or for the reason why he went, but in order to help them overcome the blight that is happening there as well. So I don't think I spoiled it. Pretty sure I didn't. I would give it an easy 3.5 stars. I'm a Stephen King lover. I do think that there are at least 100 pages of every book I've read of his that feels like a slog through, because he's giving you every detail in ways that you don't entirely need. But that's sort of like epic storytelling, right? Like, I don't think there's a major fantasy horror writer that doesn't do a little bit of that. And then after the story, this is true again for every Stephen King book that I've ever read, you lose that sense of slog because you know exactly what's going on. You don't feel lost at all. The characters are very consistent. So it's a slog, and then at the end it's like, okay, I get it, and it was worth that slog, and the story was good. So this, I would say, I mean, I love The Shining, so it's not above that for me. And I'm trying to think of a Stephen King book that I really didn't like to compare it to, but I really can't. I mean, Jerusalem's Lot was a little bit of a disappointment when I reread that a couple of years ago, but it was a reread, and there's a movie, all of that stuff. This doesn't feel anything like that. I never read Dolores Claiborne, so that's one of the sort of domestic horror kinds of... Did I? Now that I say that, I might have read at least half of that. That might be a non-fave, I guess. Now I'm actually wondering if I've read it. I do have a goal to try and get through every single Stephen King book before I die. But he keeps writing them. And they're not little, right? My next one is probably going to be Lisey's Story. Maybe it's Lisey's Story, because Stephen King himself has said that this is one of his favorites. I also really liked Pet Sematary when I reread that one 2 years ago. So, for folks who are interested in jumping in, actually, for folks who have never read a Stephen King, I would recommend a novella or something short within his either fantasy or horror genres, versus like Gunslinger, which is Western-y, which is fine. If that's what you're into, then you should definitely go that way. Or I think that because he's written so many books, there are books in almost every major genre, whether it's within that as a major genre or as a subgenre, because I mean, he's just written so many things. I believe that fairy tale is really being touted as dark fantasy as opposed to horror, which makes sense because of the portal magic piece. But it's, the main character's 17 years old. I haven't heard anybody say it's YA, but it would fit in a YA horror, YA fantasy shelf easily. And we won't even talk about how the reason why they're not calling it YA is because it's written by a man. We know about it. Okay. All right. So that's Fairy Tale by Stephen King. Also, Lizzie's Story by Stephen King, which I'm not even totally sure what it's about, but I'm really interested in that one. And I got it at a secondhand bookstore. All right, so let's talk about Dragon Steel, which I believe is Brandon Sanderson's company. And this last year, 2022, as we know, we were in stages of global shutdown. And Brandon Sanderson, who wrote the Mistborn trilogy, but also a couple of young adult / middle grade books. I wish I could remember the name. I'm pretty sure one of them is over there. Brandon Sanderson announced in 2022 that he had written 4 additional books in the Cosmere universe during the pandemic, because what the fuck else is he gonna do, right? And he put it up as a Kickstarter, and it is to date the most funded Kickstarter in the history of Kickstarters. So he wrote the 2 books and then said, I'm also going to release 8 boxes of related goods. Who wants it? And at the time, I had never read a Brandon Sanderson book. And to date, I've only read 2 of them. I hope to get through more of them, but they are also, again, long, dense. There's a whole fandom of trying to figure out how the different series cross each other, what the timeline is, etc., etc. So I think it's going to be great fun to get to know more of the world and more of the characters. I've read Mistborn and the one that came after Mistborn. So The Hero of Ages will be my next one to finish the Mistborn trilogy. And then I will probably do Warbearer or next, whatever that set is. So this came in the mail 3 days ago. I did already break the seal on it. The quote in the box says, "The purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think upon." And I totally agree with that. That's a character called Wit. He's a bit of a shyster, I believe, in the books. All right, I don't know if there's going to be a spoiler card. Yep, spoiler card right here. So first we've got a sticky note. True to his nature, Wit is both inspiring and insulting. Either way, you still get to write on his face. And it's a picture of him, and the words very lightly say, "There are still stories to tell." Then we get a mouse pad. I love a space theme. So I don't know. I'm not gonna talk about Mistborn too much, because I really want to finish the trilogy and then I'll talk about it. I don't think I already did a summary of it anywhere, but maybe I did. I don't think I did. But our main character in that story is also a 16, 17-year-old person, but this is a girl who's grown up impoverished and is part of a street gang, and finds out that she's a member of she's able to do a lot of magical things that she wasn't realizing she was doing. She was attributing it to like her luck or things like that. But she's actually, they don't call them magicians, they call them Mistborns. Duh. Because of her level of magic. All right, so that was the mouse pad. Now your mouse can travel to Cosmere with Hoyd. How many Easter eggs can you find? Do they mean like online or like in this mouse pad? Because I can tell you none of them. I'm not going to know it that well. Okay, then we've got a character pin. Now it says, "Now for the twist ending." Never mind, there's no twist. It's Hoyd again. But what were you expecting? After all, he does seem to show up everywhere. Okay, there's a t-shirt. I'll open it in a second. And then we've got Hoyd was here coins. Contains 100% nonsense. They're stickers in coin shapes. Let's see. And the note from Brandon Sanderson says, I have the best fans in the world. You've proven to me time and time again, you are awesome, you are amazing, and you have incredible taste in books. Brandon Sanderson and the Team Dragon still. Okay, we'll toss these back in here. And then let's check the shirt out. The gold seals, I can tell you, make it official. Hoyd's gold seals add a touch of sophistication to even the most undeserving absurdities. Share the Hoyd. And then we've got a Hoyd for President t-shirt. I guess it's clear that it's a Hoyd box, right? The character of Hoyd is sort of like an informant in the world, and he is not always the most trustworthy person. Let's see if there's anything else. So we got a mouse pad, a t-shirt, sticky notes, gold seals, and the enamel pin, which I'm wondering if they're going to do a pin flag or if I should get one. What do you think? Get one? I don't know. Okay, that was a book in a box, and I'll catch you on the next one.